What is he looking for at the beginning here?
I think some cheap interaction, specifically Lightning Strike, is a big deal, and pressure. He can't keep a slow hand.
Goblin Rabblemaster in particular is a valuable piece of pressure in this matchup because White-Blue Heroic is one of the worst decks in the format at defending itself against a Rabblemaster.
Again, the deck all offense, plays no defense, and Rabblemaster can race so fast uncontested.
It plays one way.
See, both these players get started as our semifinals get underway. Dylan making the first play of the game, a Flooded Strand. Caleb simply with a Plains on his first turn.
That's
Dylan going to take this
beautiful island.
little APAC action.
Yes. That's like behind only Beta and Unhinged.
I think that it's in front of Unhinged.
No, that's dude. Oof.
And they're all a distant second to Beta.
Ooh.
Temple of Triumph from Dylan, leaves it on top. Caleb draws Aqueous Form.
No blue mana yet.
See, mana base for White-Blue Heroic, not always the most consistent.
So now he has Hero of Erois, right? But did not play it, wanting to wait to protect it with God's Willing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there we do see the blue. He does have everything together, but he did not want to throw his Hero of Erois out there without the ability to protect it,
So
or threaten to protect it.
So here's our third turn, Hero of Erois for Caleb.
Now, what's interesting is he doesn't even necessarily have the God's Willing. He's just representing it, which Dylan will probably respect.
Very important for this White-Blue Heroic deck to measure its threats, because without a creature in play, the rest of the deck doesn't do anything. Cannot just be running things into removal.
No, I mean, if you're sitting on a hand of Defiant Strikes and Stratus Walks, what are you even doing?
Dylan cracking another Flooded Strand here, has all of his mana online. Raise the alarm at the end of the turn. Dylan untaps, starts his fourth turn.
Now, this Hero of Erois, how much better is it than any of the other potential targets like Battlewise, Hoplite, or Favorite Hoplite, Seeker of the Way? Is it any better?
I think they're all approximately the same.
Fair.
Just a Seeker of the Way from Dylan. Leaving 2 mana up, threatening Lightning Strike. There's a Stratus Walk. That will trigger Heroic. Caleb will draw a card. Another Hero of Erois. How much is Caleb willing to advance here? He can hold up God's Willing. He can hold up Feeder Resistance, but is that enough? Here's a Defiant Strike.
And this is a pretty great start from Caleb. The one little hitch in the whole thing is that Seeker of the Way is sometimes a tough customer to race. If Dylan drops the Jeskai Ascendancy, suddenly Caleb's looking at a ton of damage, including lots of lifelink damage.
As you mentioned before, these decks not very good at interacting with one another. They're much more offense than defense.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan's got a little bit of interaction, but he's also got a little bit less offense. Both decks, however, 85% offense.
Dylan contemplating his move here. Has a 5th land.
And it looks like he's not going to play a spell this turn.
Still an opportunity before damage. It looks like we're going to see a Stoke the Flames.
Going after Caleb, not even bothering to hit the creature, figuring, you know what, I can't, you're just going to protect it anyway.
So 4 points of damage from the Stoke,
I love
3
that.
from the Seeker, 2 more from the tokens. That's 9 coming across. Defiant Strike at the end of the turn for Caleb. Grows the hero even further. Takes a draw. It's a Seeker of the Way of its own.
So he's got a ton of interactive elements at this point. if he can spend the mana on them. He doesn't have a lot of mana. He's got God's Willing, he's got Ajani's Presence, and he's got Stubborn Denial. What he doesn't have is a 4th land.
If he's committed to holding up all these tricks, it's hard for him to be that proactive.
Right. Now, I like Favored Hoplite here because of its ability to sort of force Dylan's hand. Dylan's going to have to do something, or else the Favored Hoplite stops the 2 tokens.
Dylan untaps and draws.
And it looks like Jeskai Ascendancy. It is.
And here is a fully kicked up Stubborn Denial from Caleb.
Ooh.
1 copy in the main deck.
Nobody ever expects the Miser Stubborn Denial.
And now Dylan in a lot of trouble. An attack with Seeker of the Way. Still gets the Prowess trigger.
Yep. Which is still a nice little swing, even though he's starting to fall slightly behind. What's interesting, though, is that this Favored Hoplite can block the Seeker. If he has a Defiant Strike, he can trade with the Seeker.
Or he can do a little bit better.
Right. Now, Favored Hoplite would be invulnerable to damage anyway, so that he would just eat it. So any of the tricks really would be good enough as long as they pumped his power by 1. Ajani's Presence doing just that.
And now Caleb firmly in control of this game as he untaps.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan doesn't have a ton of ways to catch up. That was the biggest. That was the biggest thing he had going. That was supposed to be his big finish.
Another hit from the hero, knocking Dylan to 5, facing lethal next turn.
Absolutely, and remember, this is the hard game for Caleb. So this is big. This is so big. Overcoming Dylan's game 1 on the play, and it looks like this is going to be it.
A final attack here from Caleb.
And
that's a concession.
And
Caleb Scherer quickly up a game in the semifinals.
Now, of course, 2 hours and 38 minutes shorter than our last match so far, but we're going to jump back in the booth and do trivia. That's right. We've got a bonus round of trivia for the Invitational. 6 more months of SCG Premium. The rules, same as before. We have a trivia question for you, which is not affiliated with Twitch, according to our lawyers. But if you tweet at us at SCG Live, make sure you're following so that you can get a message back in case you win. If you tweet at us with the hashtag SCG Premium, with the answer to this trivia question, you can win 6 months of premium on us.
Have at it.
What is the name of the new podcast starring yours truly and Michael J. Flores? I'm sure you know this. It's a top podcast. It's like Michael Flores of Top 8 Magic fame.
I do.
And myself of Next Level Magic, which is available now, fame. The two of us came together for a top podcast that tries to go to the top level. What is the name of that podcast? And if you include Michael Flores, it won't increase your chances of winning, but at least you can troll him a little bit.
You've blown the secret. Every single time we say, and include the name of the person, we say you get extra ping pong balls to troll. You can't let them know that it doesn't increase the odds. You've ruined. That was a.
Well, maybe it's just.
Never mind.
If you would like extra ping pong balls. All right, we're jumping into game 2. But make sure to include Flores anyway, because you know what? You don't need to, but that's part of what makes it so good at trolling.
So Dylan Donegan sideboard here. 2 copies of Hushwing Grip, 4 Disdainful Strokes, 2 copies of Erase, a Negate, and Elspeth Sun's Champion, 3 Arc Lightnings, 2 Glare of Heresies. What do you like here?
So I think the Glare of Heresy is obviously a very reasonable option. Having the 2-mana removal spell, that's the type of stuff he needs to try to buy himself some time. I think Arc Lightning, also important. Just having answers that don't cost too much. It's a little slow, but it's still worth having. I think what's going to be interesting to see is whether or not it's worth having stuff like either Erase or Elspeth. Erase, definitely a great tempo play, but the targets are not overwhelmingly exciting. And then on the other side, I think Elspeth, while it could be good at taking over, I think it's too likely that it can't block very easily. The one reason I do like it, though, is I actually think the -3 ability is really important in this matchup.
On Caleb's side, a lot of weird one-ofs to supplement a lot of singletons in the main deck. What do you like on his side?
So having just more ways to interact the right way, you know, like Ajani's presence is actually totally reasonable here. And stubborn denial is actually normally something that they would want for this matchup, but Dylan, unlike most Jeskai decks, doesn't even have access to end hostilities. So it kind of throws things for a loop a little bit. Mortal Obstinacy is an interesting one because it has the ability to be searched up with Heliod's Pilgrim and give him an answer to Jeskai Ascendancy. So I think that's going to be very important. And then finally beyond that, I think just things like Triton Tactics just give him ways to beat burn spells.
So you think both players are going to try to increase their level of interaction post-board?
Yeah, now that they actually have chances to bring in the cards that are actually appropriate for this matchup, game one, they're both just trying to be as offensive and present as powerful of a game plan as possible.
So game two underway momentarily. Remember, this is best 3 out of 5, so the sideboard definitely magnified in these kind of matches.
And even though Jeskai Tokens is generally favored in this matchup, game one is where they get a lot of their edge. So the fact that this is a 5-game match already slides some points towards Caleb, but the fact that he won the first game, which was supposed to be the hard game, and he did it while he was on the draw, even though this is a matchup that is incredibly about being on the play, that's real big for Caleb. That's a game changer. This is the type of thing that has S-Man sweating.
I was about to say, perhaps a slot in the Players' Championship slipping away for S-Man. I saw him out on the rail there a little bit, sitting in between Jim Davis's match and getting this ready to start. He looked pretty uncomfortable.
Just trying to loosen his collar a little bit. Needs a little air, needs to go for a walk. I mean, this is intense. Getting a slot in the Players' Championship is huge. 16 people, 50K. Plus, obviously, your flight there, your accommodations, the glory.
A full year's worth of work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a challenge to qualify for, and for Dylan, I mean, it represents an entire year of doing well in the Open Series at Invitationals.
Yeah, I mean, and Dylan now has locked up his slot with he needed a top 4 finish. He's in the finals. He's got it in the bag. He still wants that $10,000 check in first place. And what's interesting is that he's playing spoiler. He's the potential path for S-Man to get a slot back, which is who Dylan took it from in the first place.
And for Caleb Scherer, a player with not much recognition on the Open Series prior to this event, could perhaps just march in here.
Well, this is his breakout tournament.
Take the $10,000, fly to Roanoke in a week.
Just show him how Tom Ross does it. That's what he'll just be like balling out of control. Dylan debating on the mulligan decision. Looks like he is going to keep it.
Caleb looking at what appears to be some lands and some spells.
Is there a white man in there?
I think so.
There is.
Both players keep them. We are underway. Dylan with a turn 1 Mystic Monastery matched by Caleb's Plane and the Laguna Bond Trailblazer.
Now, part of what makes the Laguna Trailblazer so important is the 0-4-ness. First of all, it ducks under Lightning Strike, but then can't be Lightning Struck. And then it very quickly becomes unable to be burned by any avenue.
A significant piece of this deck strategy against red decks.
Absolutely. And it's not trivial that it actually cuts a path through the tokens. Things like Hordling Outburst and Raise the Alarm are a lot less effective because the Trailblazer ends up growing and being able to either hold them all off by itself or attack through them. It can't even be triple blocked by a Hordling Outburst. Or not effectively anyway.
Turn 2 for Dylan, a Plains, a Seeker of the Way.
What Dylan really needs is a Goblin Rabblemaster. Goblin Rabblemaster, fantastic at attacking, very brutal against people with no removal and no ability to block.
Caleb plays land number 2. It's an island. Just passes the turn, leaving up Stubborn Denial.
It's always nice when you can like Stubborn Denial the Jeskai Ascendancy on turn 3. But, or the Hordling Outburst.
Dylan now contemplating. Does he want to try to play a spell before combat? He knows about the stubborn denials and the fact that Caleb has so many post board. He's going to
go nice play
for Goblin Rabble Master instead.
Nice play. And yeah, he's most likely not going to attack with the Seeker because he can't risk the Trailblazer getting a Defiant Strike and just eating it alive.
So we see a block, no tricks from either player. I move to Caleb's turn.
Wow, no tricks is pretty brutal. That means that the Rabblemaster army is going to start to grow. Caleb would have snapped off just about any trick he had if he had one.
Caleb will get things started with a Temple of Enlightenment.
We are closing down our side events for the weekend.
And as you mentioned before, this deck, not a lot in the way of removal. Rabblemaster, one of the best cards you can present against it. Caleb with no further play passes back to Dylan.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be a runaway. He does have 0 answers to Goblin Rabblemaster beyond blocking and making it work out.
Overpowering it.
Yeah.
Dylan simply moves into combat, triggers the Rabblemaster, and sends everything in.
This is a pretty potent attack. I mean, that's 6 damage right there. So what's Caleb need to turn this around? I mean, he obviously doesn't have an answer to the Rabblemaster now.
I don't think that his deck really does turn it around. It has to, his deck's not equipped to really do that. It has to be through Ordeal of Heliod. That's the one card that can give him enough of a cushion to try to assemble a monster and overpower the Rabblemaster.
Ajani's presence at least would let him eat the Rabblemaster, right? If everything went well.
Yep. And Dylan still got a grip full of cards. He hasn't played very much.
No, it's the Rabblemaster's doing this, you know, Rab Daddy is doing it on his own.
Land number 4, Mana Confluence from Caleb. And a Battle-Wise Hoplet passes the turn back with 2 mana available. Dylan untaps, draws.
I mean, I respect this white-blue heroic deck's chutzpah, but like, in the words of Hall of Famer Paul Rietzel, has there ever been a worse deck to win a match of Magic?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Name one. And Sean Hammer Reznier's deck does not count.
The deck that I grinded into PTLA with.
Goblin Rabblemaster attacking.
That's the worst deck of all time. That won something.
What was that deck?
Yamabushi's Flame. Yeah. Some blocks here from Caleb.
Battle-Wise Hoplite going to trade with the Rabblemaster.
Neither player willing to make a move inside of combat, respecting each other's ability to play tricks over the top. Post-combat, a second Seeker of the Way. Mystic Monastery?
Yeah, Dylan, way ahead, knows it. He's going to force Caleb to react to him.
Tranquil Cove sends Caleb up to 12. Caleb looking like he's making a move towards Heliod's Pilgrim.
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't have time for the stuff like Thassa, you know, Ordeal of Thassa. It's too bad he doesn't have like a single defensive card in his deck to go get right now.
Ordeal of Heliod. That's his defensive card. But
Sure.
it's still more offense, but it's vaguely defensive.
That is vaguely defensive. Mortal Obstinacy. At least it costs 1 mana. Now, we talked about this during sideboarding. This most commonly is an answer to Jeskai Ascendancy, but here it makes his Laguna Band Trailblazer into a 2/6, meaning it can potentially eat Seekers of the Way.
Caleb not willing to deploy it just yet, passes the turn back.
Caleb trying to imagine what 5 cards could be in Dylan's hand that don't kill him. Dylan yet to
There's an
Yet
land
to
and
play a
attack.
spell. He wants to start it off by forcing Caleb's hand. Now, interesting to note, the Mortal Obstinacy did not get played on the Laguna Band Trailblazer. So it is not a The Abyss.
Some blocks there. Heliod's Pilgrim takes out a token. A third Seeker post-combat.
That's one of the least scary cards that Dylan could play in this position.
Caleb untaps and draws. It's another copy of Heliod's Pilgrim.
He has so many cards. If any of them can do anything here, I mean, like, he might just need that Heliod's Pilgrim to find Ordeal of Heliod, right?
We're getting to that point. Again, the issue, as you mentioned before, the deck's just all offense.
Yeah.
A second Heliod's Pilgrim.
Its only defensive card gives you +1/+1 counters when you attack. And he goes with Ordeal of Thassa again. What an aggressive search. It's interesting.
Perhaps trying to line up the triggers all for one turn, one big attack.
So now by playing the Mortal Obstinacy this turn, he makes himself a The Abyss, and he has Stubborn Denial backup. What he doesn't have is the ability to actually Stubborn Denial the hard way. It's literally just a force spike among spell pierces.
And that's it for Caleb, just the Moral Obstinacy. Passes the turn back to Dylan. One taps, draws.
Dylan needs a non-creature spell.
Yep.
That's what he needs. He needs it like right now.
Dylan's draw has been anemic enough that it feels like Caleb has at least a shot here if the rest of Dylan's hand is lands or additional creatures.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan needs to have a non-creature spell right now to hold on to his big lead in this game. Because this is the turning point. Now that Laguna Band Trailblazer is a The Abyss, he needs to have something that can actually punch through this, and it looks like he does. That looks like a Treasure Cruise.
And here it is, Treasure Cruise. 5 mana paid, 3 cards exiled.
And this is so important, not just for giving him the much needed extra, next wave of cards, but making these Seekers 3/3s so that they can actually live attacking into the Laguna Band Trailblazer. Additionally, if Dylan gets another spell he can cast, they'll become 4/4s. And now we're starting to talk about a whole lot of chump blocking from Caleb.
Yep. Here comes an attack.
Now, if Caleb tries to eat the 2 tokens with his 2 Pilgrims, a Raise the Alarm does kill him.
Any spell.
Stubborn Denial could counter it.
See the blocks here.
The
Trailblazer.
Seeker's still getting the triggers.
Trailblazer in front of 1 Seeker.
I like the split here. I like the split, sort of hedging your bets a little bit. You want to make sure you don't just lose to Raise the Alarm when you have that counter backup.
And looks like 4 points of damage is going to come across.
Dylan now with a commanding lead, a nice full grip, suggesting next turn he'll be actually ending it for Caleb unless Caleb can produce a lot. And that's part of why it was kind of surprising to see Ordeal of Thassa here instead of Ordeal of Heliod.
I was surprised too. You see the Ordeal of Heliod here. That's going to be a trigger, 3 counters. Caleb is going to go ahead and draw 2 cards. Dig through time, Battle-Wise Hoplite. No blocks from Dylan at a comfortable 27. Can afford to take the 4.
Drops to 23.
The Hoplite post-combat. Dylan taps, takes a draw.
Now he is dead to anything.
And Dylan just turns them all sideways.
Does Dylan have anything? He does not.
The attack will knock
Oh,
Caleb
he
down to
might
1.
just have a burn spell in hand. Or is his hand literally all land?
Wow! I mean, anything. And he wins the game that turn.
Okay. So
Unbelievable.
Caleb's still not in a great position. Needs an ordeal of Heliod like right now. And he packs his cards in.
Yeah, and Dylan shows the hand. Unbelievable that he found no action there, but still able to pull out game number 2.
Wow. So Dylan Donegan ties it up 1 game apiece in the best of 5 with Jeskai Tokens versus White Blue Heroic. A very different tenor of match than we just saw. Very exciting. We talked about how important Goblin Rabblemaster was going to be in this matchup, and here we saw it, even though Caleb was eventually able to get rid of it with a potent series of, with an important block. The 3 goblins and the extra damage put Caleb under so much pressure that he didn't have time to use the 5 or 6 extra cards he had at the end of the game. Dylan, not a great draw from him, but came out guns blazing. I mean, with the Rabblemaster specifically, not a lot else, but it was enough to get the job done.
You can see in the background there, behind Caleb, Stephen Mann, who made the top 8 this weekend of the Standard Open. Congratulations to him, but a mere few feet away.
That counts for tomorrow, or for next year, though, right?
Yep.
Off to a good start. But I think he wants next week a little bit more.
Game 3 underway momentarily.
I remember when we thought we were going to be able to cover the top 8 of the Open, or at least the finals.
We were speculating maybe we get the last round of the Swiss, maybe we just get the top 8, but
it'll be interesting to see if we get the finals.
Yeah, I think it's going to be neck and neck. At least with one of these 2 decks in the finals, that'll speed it up a little bit.
Yeah. Now, from earlier, remember we're still waiting on the trivia question. After this match, we'll have the answer to the trivia question about Michael Flores and I's totally free podcast. But in the meantime, we still have 1 card left from the Vintage Masters. Last round, Cedric and I were talking about Vintage Masters. There are apparently 3 cards that have a higher correlation with victory than any of the Power 9. 3 cards, better than Ancestral Recall in draft. And so first, before I tell you any of them, do you know any of them? Or
no, I could hazard a guess. A stronger, that they appear on your deck, that they appear in games.
If you have this card in your pool, what are the chances that you 3-0 the draft?
Okay, let me take some guesses.
Which obviously is going to bias it towards higher rarity ones because it gets smoothed out too much for the lower rarity ones.
Yeah, I would guess Soul Ring.
That's one.
I would guess, is Mana Crypt in there?
Mana Crypt is in the set. It is not one of the 3. The damage adds up.
Okay. This is tough. Better than the Power 9.
Better than the Power 9 in draft. Now, the audience already knows one that Cedric snapped off instantly.
Wow. Now is it Library of Alexandria?
No, but you just got the 3rd one that nobody got. That's the other one.
Okay, what's the
one Cedric snapped off was Skull Clamp. But
Skull Clamp.
Library of Alexandria, you're the big winner. Nobody correctly identified. Library of Alexandria, the other big ace. Better than Ancestral Recall in draft for Vintage Masters in terms of giving you the best chances to 3-0 your draft. Jeskai Tokens versus White Blue Heroic. Both players shuffling.
Yeah, back when I was first starting to play Magic, Library of Alexandria felt more powerful to me than Ancestral Recall because it was all about control back in '95.
Yeah, I mean, part of it was also in '95. There was just not. It wasn't reasonable. And Dylan takes a mulligan. It wasn't reasonable to try to beat somebody who draws Library. I was talking to Brian Weissman last night, and he lives up here in the area, and he was talking about it, the Type 1 Pro Tour, which is the old name for Vintage. He sits down in his first round, and his opponent just goes turn 1 Library, and just libraries him to death. And he's just like, okay, well, this is a nice start to the day. And there's just nothing he can do. Dylan taking a mulligan, but honestly, this is not the worst matchup in the world to mulligan with.
It feels like whoever loses is likely to lose with a bunch of cards in their hand. because the game's just over too fast. So mulligan for specific things. Mulligan for a good curve.
Right, like as we saw that game, Caleb ended the game with 5 cards in his hand, 6 cards in his hand.
Spells, all spells.
Oh, yeah. And a nice mix of things. He just didn't have that kind of time.
And 5 lands. It wasn't like he was missing land drops or anything like that. It
Yeah,
was just too fast.
Yeah, this is a very tempo-oriented matchup. This is the type of matchup where you would side in Black Lotus if you had it. Dylan Donegan, looking at 6. Can he keep these?
Maybe Chrome Box is a more reasonable threshold.
You're telling me you wouldn't sideboard in Black Lotus if you had it?
I think that I would probably find room for it.
Yeah.
But it would most likely make my main deck. Dylan keeps it 6. Caleb starts it off with a Flooded Strand.
That's why you got to play your land first, then your Lotus, so they don't stubborn denial.
Right. Mystic Monastery.
Flooded Strand on the upkeep, indicating that Caleb he has all the land he needs.
Also, there's no fanciness with these decks with
No.
their fetch lands. It's
No.
only some delve spells, but no shuffle shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean, it is nice. You know, Caleb boarded in Dig Through Time, obviously. Dylan has Treasure Cruise. Actually, Dylan just has Treasure Cruise, whereas Caleb has 1 Treasure Cruise and 1 Dig. Just keep them guessing.
Very rare to see the split as you see a second Flooded Strand and a passing of the turn.
That's the type of stuff they do in Legacy sometimes, where
Yeah.
they're just like, one of each.
If either resolves, it doesn't really matter, so might as well have some spice.
Yeah, and everything nice.
Flooded Strand from Dylan. Fetches an island.
Neither player with the lightningest of lightning starts. What is in Caleb's hand that doesn't involve a 1 or 2 drop? So Dylan does have a Seeker, which is the best turn 2 play he could possibly hope for. But what could be in Caleb's hand? Is this a Heliod's Pilgrim draw?
Or it could just be he's unwilling to deploy his 2 drops into the maw of removal. Oh,
Why throw it away to Lightning Strike, particularly if he's threat light, when he could just wait 1 turn and then protect it?
especially since Dylan has already shown a lot of respect for the possibility of God's Willing in previous games. Not even using his removal spells on creatures, and just going straight to Caleb with his burn spells.
So it looks like Caleb deciding what threat to start with. It is Battlewise Hopway, representing both the Johnny's Presence and God's Willing to protect it.
Seek the way into the red zone.
Oh, this is a fun attack because Dylan knows that Caleb can't block and blow him out, or else he could potentially get blown out and then start falling further behind.
It's part of the reason these decks are all offense and no defense. You know, it's impossible for them to block out of respect for each other's tricks. You see Defiant Strike to start off the action here. That will trigger Heroic. Dylan contemplating a response.
Defiant Strike, a virtual 2 damage, as one of the perks of it compared to some of the other tricks is the +1.
And Dylan says that resolves. Draws a card for the strike.
Now Caleb would not hate a 4th land here, just to keep developing his board. And he finds something to his liking.
Scries and leaves it on top.
It is another Defiant Strike, one that he is likely to hold.
And no blocks from Dylan. Passes the turn back. And turn raise the alarm. Caleb says that's fine. Dylan untaps.
What do you think about raising the alarm here? If he had done it on his own turn, he could have gained 3 life and did 1 extra damage to Caleb after there were no blocks.
The flip side is then Caleb has a license to go wild.
Yes, that's true.
As long as Dylan keeps up mana, as you see Glare of Heresy here.
With 2 mana up. Fortunately, Caleb has access to... oh, interesting.
Response, we will see Defiant Strike.
This gets the Battlewise Hopway up large enough to make Stubborn Denial a hard counter.
Does Dylan now respond? Unfortunately, any response will tap him out.
And he will. So now what's interesting is the Stubborn Denial can actually count, if he Lightning Strikes the Battle Wise Hoplite in response, Stubborn Denial can't stop both the Glare and the Lightning Strike. And the Lightning Strike is stopping Caleb from drawing a card from Defiant Strike anyway. This is a good play from Dylan.
And you can see why he's so patient with his removal spells here as you see a Lightning Strike in response.
And fighting the battle on Dylan's turn means that this Seeker is going to get busy.
Dylan has done a magnificent job of navigating through this Stubborn Denial.
Not a lot Caleb can do here. At least he has a Scry trigger coming if he wants it. So now Stubborn Denial countering the Lightning Strike means that he'll draw a card off Defiant Strike. However, it won't save the Battle Wise Hoplite. But I guess Caleb figures, well, if I'm going to lose my Battle Wise Hoplite anyway, I'd rather draw a card from Stubborn Denial. You know, I'd rather the Defiant Strike resolve than the Stubborn Denial.
Yep. And 6 points of damage comes trucking across here for Dylan. And Caleb now empty boarded and forced to try to reassemble. Starts off with Temple of Enlightenment.
Dude, I love Glare of Heresy in the format now. The format has just gone this direction where between the ability to hit Seeker of the Way and Battle Wise Hoplite or go against Sorin and Siege Rhino, it's just so versatile.
Especially since many of the Abzan decks have started to incorporate Whip of Erebos. Exiling is especially important.
Oh, yeah.
Caleb with a Heliod's Pilgrim. Can he rebuild in time?
Bramaz, too. I mean, Bramaz is back.
Yeah.
Bramaz is back, baby.
There is the Moral Obstinacy. But Caleb now tapped out, shields down.
Dylan pressing the advantage after a very well executed turn last turn. There's Rabble. Man.
A lot of damage coming across here. Heliod's Pilgrim in front of a token.
That puts Caleb at 6. And if there's one thing that we have learned about Blue Eye Heroic, it is that it is not a deck for blocking.
Curious enough, if you go back a couple turns to that whole Defiant Strike sequence,
Yep.
if Caleb preemptively Defiant Strikes his Hoplite the previous turn, then the Lightning Strike is no longer in the equation.
Yep.
And the Ferocious requirement is already online to fight over the Glare of Heresy.
Game of inches.
There's the Moral Obstinacy. A second copy of Heliod's Pilgrim.
Guessing we're getting Ordeal of Heliod. He wants the Ordeal of Thassa again. Very aggressive. I mean, I love card advantage. I really do.
Already has a Dig Through Time in hand, in fact.
The two Lightning Strikes come down.
There it is, Dylan Donegan. His turn to break serve, now up 2-1.
Yep. So, we have seen quite the comeback. Down a game that was so Dylan was supposed to be the favorite in game 1, and he was on the play. Everything was going so well until they started playing the match. Caleb wins game 1, convincing fashion, goes to sideboard where Caleb ostensibly gains a little bit of ground. Now, Dylan, up 2-1.
Welcome back to the booth as our two competitors take a little bit of a break here. Patrick Sullivan, Patrick Chapin. The semifinals of the Star City Games Invitational in Seattle. Very close to the Players' Championship. This match has a ton of implications. Of course, the finals does as well. This is a pretty interesting matchup, and I think that for me, the card that frames everything is Stubborn Denial. When that card's powerful, it means that the blue-white deck's ahead. And when the blue-white deck is behind, it doesn't really do anything. And the whole deck is about trying to leverage itself to get into that position where it can push ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this blue-white heroic deck is all about snowballing. It's all about starting out ahead and riding that victory, riding that to victory before the other person starts executing their basic game plan. And stubborn denial that's a total, seal the deal type of card. When things are working, it makes sure that you can close.
So when you were doing your Worlds playtesting with Paul Riesel, was this a deck that you ever considered? Was it just part of your gauntlet to test against, or was it something that you never really felt that anyone at the World Championship was going to play?
You're talking about Blue-White Heroic?
Yes.
Or White-Blue Heroic? So we never strongly considered playing White-Blue Heroic. We both played it a lot in testing for the Pro Tour in Hawaii, actually. Sam Black in particular did a lot of work on it, was very, very good at making sure that it was staying on our radar. But and Rietzel's very familiar with the deck anyway, because Matt Sperling was one of the pioneers of the archetype, playing it way back in block and then playing it in standard. Sperling reported that it was not good enough, and if Sperling doesn't like it, we considered him to be the expert on the archetype. He said that it wasn't good enough. It was good, but not good enough, and so we didn't strongly consider playing it, but we did respect it and had it in mind for our sideboard, for instance. It was one of the decks that had us playing Glare of Heresy, and Paul Rietzel, even though he didn't think his primary prediction was Whip of Erebos was going to be the next big thing, he said that if something surprises us and suddenly there's a lot of it at the same time, where 5 people on a team play a deck that you weren't expecting all of them to play, White-Blue Heroic was the next one behind Whip. White-Blue Heroic was the one where he's like, I'm okay, not worrying about it too much, but if we get caught off guard by something, he thought that might be the one.
And you made some concessions to your sideboard as a result of that?
Yeah, so part of we had Glare of Heresy, for instance, and we refused to trim Bio Blight, and in fact moved a Murderous Cut to the main deck. Little things like that, just hedging, just in case. And I think there was a little bit of White-Blue Heroic, but it sounds like we're going to jump back into the match. Dylan Donegan, the talk of the weekend, looking to continue into the finals if he can win one more match against Caleb Scherer.
Just stunning to me that we've had 3 games of this matchup so far where the person on the draw has won twice, where, speaking to Tom Ross again, said, I've never seen someone on the draw win a game. I've never seen it.
And I've never seen a Magic player use hyperbole. But that's just me. I haven't seen much. Dylan Donegan, likely going to be on the draw again. We'll see if that trend continues. My guess is that these 3 games are not going to be a large enough sample size to have Caleb questioning all that he has learned about going first with White-Blue Heroic.
Contemplating maybe being on the draw for Game 4, you think still probably out of the question?
It is pretty wild to sit down with your White-Blue Heroic deck and choose to draw in this matchup. So I don't know if that's totally what's going on here.
We did have a player choose to draw in Constructed yesterday. I do not believe you were covering the round.
We had a player draw last round. Jim Davis chose to draw with his blue-white control deck. Now, to his credit, he triple mulliganed that game, and perhaps he had a read on the future.
Jerry Thompson drew in the Abzan mirror.
Huh.
You're not buying it.
I don't believe you. I don't think that's a great time to draw when the mirror is defined by casting Read the Bones and Abzan Charm on turn 3 and being ahead on tempo. But Jerry Thompson is also a Stone Master, so sometimes you just got to mess with people. You got to just let them know that your range is much larger than the set of good plays.
Keep it unpredictable.
Yes. Yeah. It's like when you're putting together a team of superheroes. Mm-hmm. Or like a band. Every band or every team of superheroes, they need somebody who's the brains. They need somebody who's the beauty. Everybody's got something to offer. Sometimes people like Jerry Thompson, they're the wild card.
Right. Which is also important.
Yes, you need that. You need a certain amount of unpredictability.
But the second wild card, very dangerous.
Very, very dangerous. Very unpredictable.
Caleb gonna choose to play for game number 4. Starts off with the Plains and a Laguna Bond Trailblazer.
I love that the aggro decks just play 1-mana 0/4s, and that's just, like we have an aggro deck on the right playing a 1-mana 0/4, and we have an aggro deck on the left playing an 8-mana draw 3. that's standard. That's
Caleb takes a draw for turn number 2. Cast Defiance Strike.
This is the best Centaur in the format right now, right?
I'd have to think about it. I would assume so.
Oh, yeah, our spotter on the floor just checked every single Centaur in the format and came back with Courser of Prefix.
Probably played slightly more currently.
I don't see it right now. Besides, we'll see who ends up winning. Laguna Band Trailblazer or Courser of Prefix. My money's on the Centaur that's a 2-4.
Could be having that matchup in the finals, in fact.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Dylan can be stopped.
Turn 2, Seeker of the Way.
That's a great start. That's literally the best thing he could do in this position. That extra life makes it so hard to race him.
He's had Seeker of the Way early and often.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what really gives Jeskai tokens such a great matchup here. The Goblin Rabblemaster and the Seeker of the Way. Having the interactive elements like Glare of Heresy and Lightning Strike, that's good. That is important. But the whole thing they do is let you capitalize on the Seeker of the Way or the Goblin Rabblemaster.
Third land from Caleb. An attack for 1.
I love it. Just aggressively getting in there with your 1/5.
And a Battlewise Hoplite post-combat. Bat to Dylan, untaps and draws. Glare of Heresy.
Dylan has a third, he has plenty of land. What he needs to do is not start falling behind. Seeker of the Way, a potentially, I guess, big offensive weapon here in terms of sometimes the best defense is a good offense. Dylan debating whether or not to attack with his Seeker. If I'm Caleb, I'm starting to think that Dylan doesn't have a 2-mana instant here. I'm starting to think that if he attacked, I might just call.
Just block and God's willing?
Yeah, and then if God's willing, you know, it'll all just come together. Lightning Strike on Battlewise Hoplite.
So perhaps your sense was not quite correct in that moment, as we see Lightning Strike here.
No. This was a test. This was a test. From the looks of it, they can't hear us. That's good.
Caleb going to scry to the bottom, off the Hoplite trigger, scry again. Also to the bottom. Seeker of the Way coming across for 3.
Opting not to trade the Battlewise Hoplite with the Seeker.
It's got big plans.
Yeah.
Ordeal of Heliod, the draw.
Caleb has been trying to avoid Ordeal of Heliod all match, but it has finally caught up to him, and he's going to have to gain 10 life.
Feels like one of the swing cards in the matchup to me. Caleb debating on which one of his creatures he wants to target right now.
It's always nice to be able to hit the Battlewise Hoplite if you can, just because of the extra scry.
And he makes the same conclusion here. Ordeal of Heliod goes on the Battlewise Hoplite. A scry here from Caleb. Goes to the bottom.
Yeah, he scried it to the bottom. Now we're here.
And Ordeal triggers. And triggers again. 10 life. Caleb to 26. And a Seeker away post-combat.
No mana up for tricks. Just coming full on, full all out.
Dylan untaps and draws. What can he do now with Caleb's shields down?
Glare of Heresy on the Battlewise Hoplite would be just about the best possible play. Beyond that, I guess having another 2-mana spell, it might just be time to develop your mana. No, it looks like he is gonna search. Yeah, he would absolutely love to have a Glare of Heresy for the Battlewise Hoplite, which has now grown beyond the range of Stoke the Flames.
Jeskai Charm as well, although that means he's not playing 2 spells in the turn. And you called it Glare of Heresy.
That's great.
And now a Lightning Strike on Seeker of the Way.
Dylan's starting to run away with it. He's got some serious momentum. Serious momentum.
Caleb simply untaps, draws, and sends it back.
The way this game is going, we're not going to have much longer. If you want to get in on our second trivia question, you better tweet at us quick, because we're going to announce the winners very soon.
Just guy Ascendancy from Dylan. First time that has appeared in the match. Passes the turn back. Happy to play a little bit of a slower game now.
What do you think about not attacking with the Seeker there? Is it just too greedy to attack with the Seeker because in the event that Caleb has a trick, you lose it all?
Yeah, Defiant Strike.
Right.
Some things can go wrong.
Ajani's presence, maybe. If you just wait one more turn, you're in such a better spot.
Caleb behind, draws. It is Treasure Cruise. And here is a big cruise from Caleb. Huge draw here with Caleb so far behind. And here is Ordeal of Thassa. But Caleb's hands just land right now. Attacks, triggers Ordeal, draws 2. Dig through time. Another Trailblazer.
Wow, he's getting some stuff going, and he has enough life to play with because of that Ordeal of Heliod. Dylan needs a Treasure Cruise. That's what Dylan needs.
We'll see what the makeup of his hand is next turn, but a pretty high life total and Ascendancy in play. A nice spot to be in.
Yeah, but Caleb, a fresh look, has a whole lot of cards, including a Dig Through Time for next turn. He's got an extra blocker, and he's got a big 3/7 threat.
Passes the turn back. Dylan's gonna tap. Jeskai Charm in hand.
Jeskai Charm is pretty big. The ability to reset that Laguna Band Trailblazer. The only issue, of course, one white mana open means Caleb has lots of blowouts open to him.
See how Dylan wants to proceed here.
Dylan Donegan, with Jeskai Ascendancy and Seeker of the Way, threatening to attack for 4 damage off of any spell. I mean, the baseline play is attack with the Seeker, Jeskai Charm, the Laguna Band Trailblazer if he blocks, and kind of fork him where either the 0/4 is going to die or the 3/7 is going to get bounced, so he can't save both. Does he have something? Does he have something better?
And Dylan's shown a lot of respects over the course of this match for Caleb's tricks too. He's going to try to mitigate the damage of those as much as possible. It looks like Dylan ready to make his move. Whirling Outburst, that will trigger the Ascendancy.
I like this line. So first of all, it doesn't force him to walk into one of the white tricks. If Caleb has a white trick, all it does is prevent damage at this point. Second, it ensures that he has a dominating board so that if things don't go crazy, Dylan can effectively go off next turn.
Contemplating his discard.
This is definitely the rich man problem. When you have so many good cards, you don't want to discard any of them.
It also could be an issue of tempo as you see Dylan discard a Plains here, debating about whether or not he wanted to be able to cast the Charm this turn or hold it for next.
Good point.
Seeker of the Way comes across for 4 points of damage. Dylan will gain 4. And we are tied 17 all. Heliod's Pilgrim the draw for Caleb. Starting to find some more action.
Heliod's Pilgrim is particularly big because if he can get a creature through, Heliod's Pilgrim's ability to find Mortal Obstinacy could completely turn around this game.
But you feel like it's got to happen this turn because Dylan may just go off next turn.
Right. Now, God's Willing can make the Laguna Band Trailblazer protection from red so that it can actually get through.
Caleb's going to fetch here.
If he has a God's Willing, that could be one potential line. Stratus Walker Aqua's form would also get the job done in this position. Feet of Resistance, another option.
Caleb perhaps contemplating starting things off with the dig through time here.
Dig through time's a tough way to do it, but it is a totally reasonable option. That is what he's going to do.
Now, dig through time gives him the hope of finding moral obstinacy and a God's willing in the top 7.
Glare of Heresy, also an option.
Defiant Strike, some lands. A favorite Hoplite. A Stubborn Denial. Does not appear that he found any of his big hits.
No. Now, all he can really do is brace himself for the storm to come. Letting Jeskai tokens untap with an Ascendancy in play and 4 creatures, one of which is Seeker of the Way.
And here is a Defiant Strike. Dylan says that's fine. Draws a card.
Passes the turn.
Let's see what Dylan can do now.
This is going to get crazy.
A second Whirling Outburst.
And I like leading with this. Caleb has no sweepers. He has no way to punish an overextended board. Dylan at 17 with Caleb not even able to attack last turn. Dylan knows that he's got time. He might as well just try to build up, present as much as he can this turn without compromising his ability to go even bigger next turn.
And here is the big finish here for Dylan here, a Treasure Cruise.
Big finish for this turn, but sets him up to attack for roughly 50 next turn.
Dylan draws 3. A game away from the finals.
A game away from the finals, and I feel like we might be a turn away from the finals. Caleb's definitely going to survive this attack. However, next turn is looking real bad.
And Dylan with a backup Ascendancy in his hand too, even if something goes wrong.
This Seeker, the Seeker's a 6/6 at this point. The Laguna Band Trailblazer blocks, but Dylan knows it was a safe attack because Caleb could only play 1 trick at worst.
Caleb untaps in a ton of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, he has no realistic way to do 23 damage, and he needs to defend himself against the 6 tokens. What he needs here is the ability to get Heliod's Pilgrim, go get Mortal Obstinacy, and make one of his creatures protection from red. I actually kind of wonder, do you think there's any merit to keeping the Seeker on defense just in case he has protection from, in case he has the Mortal Obstinacy plan?
It seems like a reasonable, that seems correct to me.
Because, is the extra 6 life going to matter in this position?
If Dylan wins, it's going to be in an overwhelming fashion.
Yeah.
Because of the Ascendancy. Here's the Ordeal of Thassa. An attack. Trigger up to 5. Ordeal breaks. 2 cards. Still no help.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb is drawing so many cards, but Dylan has an Ascendancy in play and 7 creatures. He has a fresh Treasure Cruise, and he didn't play a 6th land.
Yeah, all bad signs.
I can't even conceive of what 6 cards or 5 cards Dylan could have that don't kill Caleb.
Dylan draws. Can he put together 16 points of damage? A second Jeskai Ascendancy. Trigger from the first one.
Stubborn Denial. A great response here.
Dylan says that's countered. Triggers the Ascendancy. Discards Shivan Reef. Sends them all in.
Jeskai Ascendancy ensuring that Dylan's entire army will be untapped.
Heliod's Pilgrim in front of the Seeker. Trailblazer in front of one of the tokens. Here's a Jeskai Charm. I imagine it's
+1/+1 in lifelink, absolutely.
And if that is the case, I think this is a well past lethal attack.
Yep, that looks like it's 15, 20. Yeah, we're looking at 20 points of lifelink damage at the moment. Does Caleb have another answer? He does not. He extends the hand. Dylan advances. Dylan Donegan, our first seed, comes from behind 0-1 down against White Blue Heroic to win 3 straight. The player on the draw winning 4 consecutive matches.
Unbelievable. And now